Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
And good afternoon, everyone. Phil Penarski here with the News 8 Live Desk. Hope you're all having a great Thanksgiving Eve so far. And look who's back on the Live Desk. We are happy to be joined by Storm Teammate Chief Meteorologist Bacca and Storm Teammate Meteorologist Blake Carms. They're going to be talking, of course, about what we can expect as far as the weather goes for your Thanksgiving travel. I know a lot of people are already starting to hit the roads and are planning to hit the roads later on today and maybe even into tomorrow. But we're also going to be focusing in on, of course, the travel back, because we've got some changes to the forecast or some things that we're monitoring that we want to let everybody know a little bit more about. We're going to be getting into all of that. Ellen, Blake, thank you both so much for being here. I do want to remind everybody watching that Blake and Ellen are here to answer your questions. So if you do have any questions, maybe about a specific place that you're traveling to or traveling from on a specific day, maybe you're worried about how much snow we might be seeing over the next couple of days, all of those things, we can answer them. So if you have any questions and you're watching us on Facebook, go ahead and drop them in the comment section below. We'll get to as many as we can over the next couple of minutes while we have Ellen and Blake here. But yeah, you know, obviously, Ellen, you were on yesterday. Anything changed from sort of what you were telling us yesterday about the forecast? Maybe it's not going to be as bad as far as the snow totals go, or maybe we're seeing some additional snow patterns.
Yeah, I love that you asked that question because it reminds everyone that forecasting is always changing, so we're always kind of monitoring what's happening, the speed, the intensity, and then keeping you updated. I think the biggest thing that's changed so far is that we've worked to create a snowfall potential map so we can show you who is most likely to see what. But as far as the forecast is concerned, it's looking pretty on track, which always increases our confidence level. Blake and I have been talking, texting, chatting with the team, like pretty much 24/7. Blake, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, just like you said, it's a tricky forecast in a sense because lake effect is finicky in and of itself, and we have yet to see the model agreement that maybe we would expect less than 48 hours out. So that's where we really have to put on our thinking caps and try to figure out some of the nuances, which, Ellen, you've done a great job of doing and making sure that we're on the right track with the forecast. But this will be our first big lake effect event of the season for many, so first shovelable snow for many.
Yeah,
no, definitely something I'm not looking forward to, but maybe some people are, especially as we, again, are approaching the holiday season. Again, Thanksgiving being tomorrow, that's going to be a huge travel day, one of the biggest travel days of the entire year. And we were looking at a little bit of snow potentially coming Thursday into Friday. Is that still sort of what we're expecting to see?
Yeah, absolutely. That's when the cold air is going to start to roll in off of Lake Michigan. If we look at the map now, you can see things are pretty tame across most of the country, aside from that system that we've been monitoring and telling you about that's stretching from Denver, Colorado through Nebraska and Kansas and then into places like Illinois, Indiana. So folks that are driving south from Michigan today into Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, you may have to watch for a rain-snow mix, occasionally some heavy downpours, slowing things up on the road, especially once we get after dark. That could create some difficulties. But that swath of precipitation that you're seeing now is also going to be leading into a system that swings into the East Coast. So if you have family that's flying into New England Thursday morning, like 7 a.m., could see some delays in Newark, Washington, D.C. We'll probably see soggy conditions for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. But that's the system in the short term that we're watching for impacts leading up to Thanksgiving morning. Locally, though, we're pretty quiet until we get to Thanksgiving evening.
Yeah, that's right. You can see that system off of the south. This is one that we were initially tracking for the potential to impact us. Thankfully, as Ellen mentioned, that looks to no longer be the case. If we look at current airport delays, you can see travel moving along just fine, including here in Grand Rapids. No major delays to report, and that's given the quiet weather we have. As we look ahead on Futurecast, you can see that that system is going to be working up the East Coast, so a messy day up there tomorrow. But here in West Michigan, outside of a few occasional showers, really not expecting anything all that impactful until the snow machine begins to turn on. So if we take a little bit of a closer look, you can see that system passing off to the south will be partly to mostly cloudy through the morning. A few sprinkles or flurries are possible right along the lakeshore, and then as we head through the afternoon, that will continue to be the case, especially once we get past sunset into the later evening hours. That's when the cool air starts to filter in and we start to turn on the lake effect machine, and you can notice by midnight some heavier, darker shades of blue indicating heavier bands of snow, and that's expected to continue right on through the day on Friday. So again, your Thanksgiving planner doesn't look all that impactful. Travel not expected to be impacted with highs in the mid-30s, just the chance for a stray shower or two through the day. It's once we get into Black Friday that the travel starts to deteriorate.
And something to obviously keep in mind as well is, with it being Thanksgiving, a lot of kids are already off from school. And Blake, I'm really glad that you're here because we're also following a little bit of snow coming in into next week that could potentially bring out our first school closing predictions of the year.
It's probably going to be that time. Let's first walk through this first round and show you how much to expect because that could prime us for the second round. So Ellen, why don't you walk us through this snow timeline?
Yeah, we're looking at everything, and of course Blake just showed you that futurecast, and even though sometimes the futurecast has some of those blue bullseyes that are rolling through for Thanksgiving Day, we really think it's going to be some patches of sprinkles and flurries as we go through the morning hours. So if you're headed out to like a turkey trot, don't be surprised if you see a quick shower. We're not expecting much from that. Let me step back to that timeline and we can just continue to walk through it. Overall, what we're going to be seeing as we go through the day, as Blake just mentioned, pretty quiet conditions until we get closer to nightfall. So if you're planning on leaving Thanksgiving dinner at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, you might be running into some slick roads. That's when snow should start to pick up into light to moderate intensity. And then it does look like once we get closer to midnight and overnight into Black Friday, we have a better chance of moderate snow, or at least moderate snow bands developing, and then those continuing as we go through the day on Friday. Now, for natives here, people that live in West Michigan and have for a long time, you know that lake effect snow is one of those things where you can go from very low totals, very good visibility, down to heavy totals and pretty rough visibility in a short period of time. So if we look at the snowfall amounts and how much we're expecting, it really is going to be one of those setups where we have lines of accumulation with certain bullseyes of snow. But in general, it looks like, Phil, the wind is going to be out of the west-northwest. It's going to stay that way Thursday night through Friday. We have a really big temperature difference between the incoming cold air and Lake Michigan. And we also have some nice lift over the lake. So some of those things that can otherwise shorten our amount of snow totals, they're not looking like they're going to be as big of a factor for us through Friday. So I'm thinking it's a pretty decent setup for snow, and it's going to be over several hours.
And we're expecting this to kind of stick around. I know when we had those few flakes earlier this month, they didn't really hang out too often here in West Michigan.
It was like Insta-melt.
Exactly.
You don't even have to find
That's
your
my
shovel.
favorite kind of snow.
Yeah,
I'm just putting that out
Yeah.
there. But, we're expecting this to maybe hang around for a little bit with the, lowering of the temperatures.
Yeah. Here's a look at our snowfall map. Put the first one out yesterday. I've kind of been tweaking it a little bit as we get closer. Generally speaking, most locations in the two darker shades of blue that you see are going to see somewhere between 1 and 4 inches. Within that navy blue area that you see from Muskegon down through about South Haven, that's where we expect a few heavier bands to set up, and a few spots could see as much as 6 inches, areas that end up parked under those heavy bands for an extended period of time on Friday. And this is only the first round. We could see additional snow develop, especially Sunday into Monday. So this is one of those things where the numbers aren't overly impressive, but the duration extending into early next week means that travel impacts are likely going to be felt over a several-day period.
Yeah, and just another note, and sometimes it's those smaller snow events that end up being a little difficult on the roads because I think people kind of overestimate their abilities a bit or forget how to drive, or they don't realize how bad it's going to be. I know I've definitely been in one of those situations where I've been like, oh, it's only an inch of snow, but our temperatures are going to be falling into the upper 20s, and with the steadiness of the snow in spots, it might be a little tricky for some of the plows to keep up. Now, the good news is, temp-wise, very conducive to road salt working. So after the plows get out and about, there's a good chance that a lot of the roads should be pretty favorable. You just have to watch for those tricky spots and some of the heavier snow bands. And again, Phil, this is Friday, but as Blake just mentioned, more cold air is expected to continue to favor rolling down over the Great Lakes, which gives us additional chances for lake effect snow. As we mentioned, the cold air is just one piece. We also need a few other things like lift or the wind direction to be favorable. But it's looking like we're going to have several rounds where like the snow intensity picks up over the next week.
This is kind of like when we have a polar vortex week or we have the snow machine on, except this time the temperatures aren't going to be frigid. They're going to be chilly, but not frigid. And so the snow machine's going to be turned on for an extended period of time to some extent. we're just not expecting the single-digit temperatures this go around. Now, if this sort of deal were occurring, a month and a half from now, we'd be talking about single-digit temperatures, I think, and really heavy snow. This is just kind of priming us up for what we may see it from time to time this winter.
Right. And I want to keep going and talking about this, but I do want to get to a few questions. And I've noticed that we have quite a few more people that are tuning in right now. I want to remind everybody that if you've got questions for Blake or Ellen, please leave them in the comment section below on our Facebook stream. We're going to get to as many as we can throughout the remainder of this. We do have a message or a comment from Teresa. Hey, Teresa, thanks for watching. She's asking specifically about the Chicago and Cincinnati areas for travel. I know you showed them at the very beginning, Ellen.
Yeah, that's a great question. So first and foremost, it really depends on the time frame that you're leaving. So let's start with Chicago. If you're leaving today or you're traveling in through the day tomorrow to the Chicagoland area, you should be mostly fine. You could run into a stray snow shower or sprinkle early in the day on Thursday. But when you're coming back from Chicago, if it's beyond Thursday evening into Friday, travel really is going to get dicey once you get into West Michigan in spots. You're going to want to watch for those reductions in visibility. Now, as we just mentioned, with the rounds of snow and the rounds of cold that we're seeing, we are going to have time frames where the snow lets up a touch. And right now, it looks like Saturday potentially might be the best time frame for a little bit of a lessening of the snow. So if you're timing your travel back, right now, it looks like Saturday might be more favorable for Chicago, even early Sunday before we get another round. But travel on Friday will be a little dicey if you're swinging around the lake. As for Cincinnati, your biggest travel difficulty is kind of today. You can see how we have that big batch of rain that's rolling into the Cincinnati area and portions of Ohio. At times that could convert over into snow. By all means, it isn't the worst weather, but it's also not the best. And when you have a lot of people on the road, anytime you have something like rain or rain-snow mix, it can just kind of increase the chances for slowdowns or for a little spin-outs. So Cincinnati, if you're traveling today, watch for that. After this batch of rain rolls through, you should be fine for Thanksgiving. And then, again, just coming back into the state, watch for the snow showers once you get north of the Indiana state line, especially Friday, and then at times on Sunday especially.
And we've got the same question from two different people, from Luke and Mike. Mike also wants to wish us a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. They want to know, as far as travel goes for Saturday, you just said that Saturday looks to be a little bit clearer, at least a little bit better than Friday. Is that kind of the sentiment that we should be passing along?
Yeah, I would say yes, with a but at the end. When it comes to events like this, you always want to be checking in frequently because the snow with Lake Michigan is always directly dependent on the energy coming in. So if you have a wave of energy that's speeding up a bit or slowing down a bit, that's going to change when the snow becomes intense. But we're going to be fully staffed here, so if anything changes, you can just log on to woodtv.com. We have a forecast discussion every single day that's updated so you can, check in no matter where you live. But right now, I would say Saturday into Sunday, it's not like it's going to stop snowing, but it's just not going to be as heavy as what we're going to experience on Friday and potentially Sunday evening and overnight.
Yeah.
Right. Really trying to minimize the risk of potential
Right,
happening.
yeah, because there will be better times to travel versus less favorable times to hit the road.
Right.
Yeah.
We do have, excuse me, I apologize for that. We do have some more comments coming in. I'm going to let them kind of pile up a little bit as more people are checking in. Remember to leave the comments down below. Again, I appreciate you putting up the timeline there because that is going to be kind of what I want to re-emphasize for everybody, just the timeline for Thursday and Friday. That is one that's the sort of time period we're keeping a really close eye on and that we really want people to know about. So if you guys wouldn't mind just kind of re-explaining that for everybody that just kind of got into the stream.
Yeah, well, Blake's going to be out for the turkey trot at what time? 7 a.m.?
Yeah,
it's
very early. I don't know what time it is. It's too early.
So he's been looking at the forecast for Thursday morning pretty closely.
Yeah, it's going to be chilly. Temperatures in the 20s, but outside of a chance of a flurry or sprinkle, we should be okay through most of the morning hours. Like you mentioned, Ellen, a different story over in New York City where they'll be having the parade tomorrow. We start to see some flurries try to develop, especially for our lakeshore counties through the afternoon. And then once we get past sunset, especially, we start to see the snow gradually intensify likely turning to a few bands, at least, of moderate to heavy snow impacting some communities overnight into most of the day on Friday.
I think the biggest thing, too, is like people that are not from this area or even from the east side of the state don't always understand lake effect snow.
Right.
In that, like, sometimes you can look out your window and you're like, it's fine, like, we're fine, we can delay a little longer. But if you pull up the radar or the Storm Team 8 weather app, you can see that there's like a big variation in intensity of the bands. So I think that's my biggest, you don't have to be scared by any means,
Right.
but just to kind of check in, be a little bit more weather aware through the day on Thursday. Make sure you're seeing where those snow bands are, and if there are snow bands that are starting to get a little stronger over your route, consider your backup plans and to make sure that you feel comfortable driving. If you have someone that's not comfortable driving, obviously don't encourage them to.
Right.
Like
True.
there,
Get out of here. The
there's
turkey's
plenty
done.
of
Get outta here.
food. Like
Yeah,
that,
right.
I know that sometimes things can get a little packed in a household with a full day, but I think Thursday night, with the fact that it's just going to continue to deteriorate in spots where those bands are, you just want to make sure to like use more than just out your window,
Right.
as a litmus test for how it is outside.
And we have two separate questions, but I think they kind of go right in line with each other. Things that we've already kind of touched on, but really, temperature-wise, what can maybe we expect on Friday? And then really, I know yesterday, Ellen, you said don't really focus on the numbers as far as inches of snow. Focus more so
Yeah.
on the map itself and kind of just the differing patterns and where we might be seeing a little bit more snow. But estimates you guys might be willing to share as far as temperatures and snow go over the next couple of days.
Blake's pulling up the snow map, and again, we've been talking about this one quite a bit because the forecast models aren't in agreement yet. But we've also seen what Lake Michigan can do and where some of the tripping up points usually are. So we do have a pretty good feel that we're going to be seeing a widespread 1 to 4 inches by like 10 p.m. on Friday, which again isn't the highest amount that we've seen in West Michigan. Of course, we've seen more, but 1 to 4 inches to start off the season, along with temperatures in the 20s after dark, can lead to some icy spots on roads that have not yet been plowed. And then after this system, we kind of hold colder than average for a while.
Yeah, we see temperatures drop down in the 20s into the weekend.
Sorry, that was supposed to be an inside
Oh man,
thought.
I almost wish.
apologize.
No, I wish that you were like on the broadcast with us on live
Right.
TV, and you could just give
Oh,
the
no.
Phil perspective
Right.
as
Studio
the
audience.
play-by.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
We really don't warm up next week hardly at all. Temperatures stay in the 30s, and that's because of the map. We showed you the upper level temperatures. Some cool air that continues to come down from Canada and doesn't really abate very much at all through most of next week. Now, there will be some periods that'll be quieter than others, but the general theme is that we're expecting winds out of the northwest to keep bringing in cooler air for most of next week.
Right.
yeah. And those numbers he showed you were the daytime highs, so that's the warmest. Overnight lows will probably stay in the low 20 range. So as Blake mentioned, we're not expecting polar vortex colds.
Right.
We're not going to
Yeah.
be seeing, too much intensity of the cold yet. But this is our first big dose of winter in quite some time, because we kind of saw a very, very short winter last year with almost none of it carrying over into 2024.
Right.
So it's finally moving back in for us.
One of the things we talked about with our winter outlook when we were on here with you a few weeks ago, Phil, was we thought that as we got closer to December, especially into December, once the winter machine turned on, it would kind of turn on quickly. And December 1st is coming up Saturday
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
or Sunday, whatever day
Sunday,
it
I
is.
think, is-
So at least our first bullet point of the winter forecast is verified.
Right.
Like we got one. We got one so far.
Yep.
But yeah, really happy to see how that's playing out. And also, I honestly think that a lot of ski resorts are going to be quite happy because it looks like with this solid dose of winter, we're not going to be experiencing a lot of freeze thaw, which means they have time to add some man-made snow to the natural snow and actually give some people a chance to get out on the slopes with some groomed spots. There might even be some trails in West Michigan this week that are good for snowshoeing, cross-country skiing. Some of those really fun winter sports that people just did not really get to do too much of last year.
Right.
You might actually get a jump on this December.
Yeah, maybe we're getting sort of the payback from last year a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
I'm not seeing any more questions, guys, so I think I would love to end this with just, your top 2 or 3 things that you really want people to kind of remember. Take away from these past 2 days of streams, whether it's, when to expect the weather to start to creep in, just general tips that you want people to be aware of when they are out traveling. Again, it's probably, most people are probably leaving today and probably sticking through at least through Friday.
Yeah, I think I'll go first, and I'll let Blake finish up since his job is about to get much more busy into next week.
That's true.
I think my biggest tips are probably going to be, again, just use more than looking outside your window. This is just one of those time frames where you want to start being a little extra weather aware. You don't have to be scared, but just have some tools nearby. We have the Storm Team 8 weather app. It's free. You can look at the radar there. You can also access our forecast. And we're also on TV like all the time.
Absolutely.
We have plenty of shows, and we take this really seriously. We've all been here for a long time, so we know which events might be more impactful versus less. And we just want to make sure that you guys are all safe out there. So check in with us, and just know that it's going to finally kind of be wintry around here. Blake?
Yeah, I think most of the Thanksgiving Day travel is going to be relatively unaffected, especially through mid-evening. Once we get into the late night, especially shopping on Friday and through most of the weekend, that's when in some spots we could see some heavy snow. And just remember that it's lake effect. One town to another can make a world of a difference. And just because you're not seeing snow at your window doesn't mean it's not occurring elsewhere, especially Friday and Saturday. So as Ellen mentioned, it's important to keep up before you do head across town this weekend.
All good things to keep in mind. And we do actually have one last comment that I want to get to. It's from Lydia. She says that she's excited for the snow because her birthday is coming up next week. So happy early birthday, Lydia.
Happy
Thank you so much
birthday.
for watching. But again, they both said it. Can't emphasize it enough. If you have any questions regarding traveling or the forecast, you can always turn to Storm Team 8. They always have you covered. You can find the latest forecast, latest numbers, everything you need to know over on our website, woodtv.com. We even have a couple travel-specific stories for everybody to check out. So be sure to head on over to woodtv.com. You'll find everything you need to know there. Blake and Ellen, thank you both so much for coming on today. It was so great, and I know a lot of people really appreciated it.
Thank you, Phil.
Of course. And I want to thank everybody else for tuning into this latest edition of the News 8 Live Desk. I'm Phil Pinarski, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.